Hey everyone, very grateful to have you tuning in for today's message, and this one is going to be something that has just recently come up for me, and I've been doing some deep work on this, let me tell you. So much so that it has definitely affected my energy levels over the last few days, but in a really powerful and more centering way. So very excited about going through this particular topic with you guys, and I want you to consider the answer to the question as to how much of what you do, if you're really honest with yourself, is motivated by an attempt to prove your value, to prove that you're good enough, right? I really want you guys to take this one into the heart because it's meaningful, and I'm going to share with you guys from my private experience something that's deeply personal and deeply private, in the hope that it actually serves you, because it's right where I've had a massive vulnerability, and I finally feel like, at the age that I've reached right now in my life, I feel like I've finally actually made some really meaningful traction towards this that previously I just wouldn't have had the consciousness, and I wouldn't have had the courage, I feel, to really go into this darker place. So, and I'm going to share with you guys my personal experience on this, and I'm also going to dive deep into just a little bit of an example with a client of mine who's gone through the same underlying challenge that I feel is very human, right? It's totally in connection to our humanness. So think about your fear of rejection, and think about your deepest neediness, right? Your deepest desire that drives and is the motivation behind your actions. All right, so let's dive into it so it makes a hell of a lot more sense as I explain. But basically, over the last few weeks, I've been really diving into a new level of depth in my values, and moving towards my vision and getting the deepest level of clarity possible in my purpose and my mission and all of that good stuff. And as you guys know, I like to think of myself as a bit of the human guinea pig of all things personal development, so that I can have the experience with what's out there, and then kind of bring it all together and simplify things and systemize things based on my own personal experience and what has worked and been most powerful to help fast track the success and the breakthroughs of my clients, right? Through my programs, through my coaching, through everything that I do, hopefully even through these messages. So that's been my focus right now, has been on values. And I've really taken the time to go super deep, like deeper than I've ever done before, and really spend the time to question everything. And one of the processes I've taken myself through has been looking at, my top highest values, and then actually looking at every single one of them on the list and determining a ratio as to how much of that value is motivated in a positive light versus motivated negatively, right? Positive is, it's moving towards contribution and growth and all the things that are totally meaningful, versus negatively motivated, which is an avoidance of some sort of pain or fear. All right. So, and I had to be completely brutally honest with myself about this, and I looked at all my beautiful highest values, and I was like, wow, I've never had such clarity in my values before, and I was so moved and excited by them. And then when I got to this point where I was like, okay, well, let's look honestly, like how much is motivated in a positive light and how much is motivated negatively, and total honesty with myself. Yes, okay, there was the more of them were always motivated on a more positive light, but there was still a percentage of the negative one, right? And then so what I did was I gave each of my values a percentage as to how positively swayed it was and how negatively motivated it was. And I then looked at them, and I went through one by one, and I identified what's the common theme, right? What's the negative theme that's underlying the motivation of this value? And to my surprise, or maybe not to my subconscious's surprise, but very much so to my conscious mind's surprise, there was the same theme driving the whole mix. And what that theme for me was I wanted to prove my value. And I had to look honestly, why am I attempting to prove my value? What's driving that? What fear is driving that? And what came up for me was this like fear of not being wanted or not being of value, right? And so I really had to look at that. And I went through a very deep hour-long visualization process, which used all these different NLP techniques like timeline therapy and different things that were involved. But basically what that process brought me to was something incredibly powerful. And it's given me a new realization of kind of what I already knew. I knew, our past experiences, mold and shape how we are in our reality today. And if we're, sabotaging our success or doing things we know consciously aren't good for us to do, but we still keep doing them, right? We can know that there's some sort of anchor from the past that we haven't yet integrated, we haven't yet rectified, right? And so let me tell you my journey, and it was a very emotional journey, and it might sound a little woo-woo to you guys out there, whatever, because we have to look at our subconscious, and our subconscious doesn't operate in the same realm that our conscious mind does. It actually operates through metaphor, through visual aspects. There's a lot of meaning. It's not through our conscious language. All right, so I'm going to share my personal journey of what happened for me during this visualization and what it means as a result and how it might help you, right? So basically, as I went through this process and I had this common theme of the negative drive and motivation behind a percentage of my values, that fear of or that avoidance of some sort of unworthiness, that need to feel wanted and need to prove my value, it actually took me all the way back through the timeline of my life, all the way back to being actually not even born yet, right? It took me back to being in my mother's womb. Oh my gosh, my mum just joined this live as I said that. That's so weird. Anyway, so what just happened was it took me back in a subconscious way, back to this moment of being in my mum's womb and her sitting in bed, and my subconscious felt like it was a discovery that she was pregnant. And my dad was pacing across the end of the bed, just like freaking out, right? Like just in total fear, like what? We can't have another child. Like I don't want another baby. Like I'm too old, like all this stuff, right? Because I joke and say that I was not a mistake, but a miracle child that came a little bit later in my parents' life, right? And it wasn't planned at all. And so my subconscious took me back to this moment of being in my mother's womb and seeing my dad like just pace back and forth, like he just in total fear, total uncertainty, totally didn't want another child, right? And I feel like there was this part of me that had this sense of terror. Am I gonna survive or am I not, right? And my value is being determined by these external sources, right? And I have to make sure that I'm of value and I have to prove my value so I can survive, right? And so that's the perspective that my subconscious had, right? That like I wasn't wanted. There was a hell of a lot of fear and uncertainty. And I have to prove my value, right? And so that was the experience in my subconscious. And then as I went through these processes and I took a different perspective on the situation and took myself kind of out of it and looking at all elements at play there, the part that my subconscious had missed, which I was able to gather during this process, was that my mum wasn't in any fear. She was in total certainty, able to just be present to the moment, be in total certainty that this was absolutely what she wanted, right? And to be able to be so centered in that love, in what she wanted, and that happening, and they're just like that unwavering unshakability, and that was the pathway forward. She was able to hold space for my dad's fears and basically get to a point where, and she's actually shared with me this moment that happened. And she said, once he'd kind of paced around and kind of got all into his fear and whatever, she said to him, Mark, my dad's name, you've made me the happiest woman alive, right? And in that moment, like, his fears dissipated and it's like, okay, we're doing this, right? And so to see this different perspective, what I took from that, right, on a subconscious level was, it wasn't that my value needed to be determined by external sources. It had nothing to do with that. Really, what that experience taught me was how powerful my mum's love was, right, in that moment. And what message came up for me was, love saves lives. And I was taken to all these different moments in my life that have been the most inspiring, which has been watching people come back from the brink of wanting to take their own lives and actually being awoken to how loved they are, right? And so that message came forward, like, love saves lives. And I realized why I'm so inspired by those moments in my life, because in a way, my mum's love and clarity and certainty that she held within and her internal conviction might have saved my life, right? And the other message that came through for me was that love trumps fear, right? Always. And I had the experience of, my mum's love being able to melt away my dad's fears, right? She had that certainty for them both. And it gave me, like, what I took from that experience was so incredible for me, because instead of me not addressing my moment of terror and what went on in my subconscious being, if I never addressed that, what was it doing? It was guiding my entire life, right? Even my highest values of service were still being guided by this terror, this unaddressed terror within. That I had to prove my value in order to survive, right? Driving this need to be wanted so that I could know that I could survive, right? And by going back and re-examining that moment in my life before I was born, maybe, like I said, this might sound woo-woo, but it's on the subconscious level and we can talk about that all day. But what matters most is the person's experience. And what I took from that and going through this experience was so connected to why I'm here on this planet, right? It was so connected to what I envision in my future as to be my greatest purpose, my greatest service. And what that really was using the metaphor of being in my mum's womb and, me being everything that she wanted, her dream, right? Her dream was she wanted a girl, right? She had 2 sons. She dreamt of having a little baby girl, right? And that was my mum's dream, her purpose, her mission. And she was so solid in nurturing that and protecting that and holding space for that, despite the fears in the mix, right? And I use that metaphor to project into my future and the work that I do and everything that I do. And I was so connected to how meaningful that is to me, to not only hold and nurture my own dreams for what I feel is possible, for what I feel inspired by, what I'm authentically inspired by in my life, not only to hold that space and nurture and protect that dream for myself in the face of my own fears and the fears of those around me, but ultimately to be able to hold that space for the dreams of others and nurture that and protect that for them until they're big enough and strong enough to do that for themselves, right? And to me, like, there's nothing more meaningful and empowering than that, to see the change that could happen in this world if we all connected deeply to what we're most authentically inspired by. And we went on the journey of nurturing and protecting that despite our fears and the fears of others, just like my mum did, you know? And from that place, you know, being able to make the most of our lives, right? Living on purpose, reaching our potential, having the impact that would be most meaningful to us so that we can know and feel that our lives matter, but not driven from a place of, I got to prove my value, but instead a strong certainty in your inherent value as a human being, right? That's what self-esteem is. And you don't need to prove that. Right? And the more that you do try to prove that, the more that reinforces your belief in your unworthiness. And just know this, all of those fears that you have are being driven by different experiences in your past, different things in your subconscious, but the way out is always through awareness, through your courage and willingness to go and find those different shards that have been broken off of you, right, throughout your existence, and go and reintegrate those and get them to grow up to be the person that you are today and the person that you're meant to be. And I just wanted to add this other little example of this because one of my beautiful clients has been going through some incredibly challenging work in their lives. And just yesterday in a group coaching session with my Limitless Potential gang, he shared something really empowering, which was he'd discovered that he wouldn't be the man that he is today and have everything that he's accomplished and the character that he has if his mother hadn't rejected him, right? And so that's only been a very new experience that he's had the courage to address, to know that his experience of life in life, he felt like his mum rejected him. She didn't accept him. She rejected him. She didn't believe in him. And so he spent his life trying to prove that everything that she didn't believe in him, he tried to prove and succeeded in doing and achieving the things that he felt would prove to her his worth. But every time he got one of those things or achieved one of those things that proved his worth, it really just reinforced his unworthiness, his belief in his unworthiness, right? Because it never changed anything. It was never enough. It wasn't until he was able to go back through, and I took him through these sort of processes, that he was able to see things in a whole new light, a whole new perspective, and do the work and have the courage to address his deepest moments of terror, right? Because that's what it is. You know, when we experience our most terrifying moment, it actually becomes our greatest liberator, right? Because we see it from a different perspective, and it's not about dissociating from the pain that's experienced in those moments, right? That's traumatic for anyone to address. For me, the sense of not being wanted. For my one of my clients, you know, that sense of being rejected, right? By me not being wanted by my father, him being rejected by his mother, right? So pretty terrifying to confront, right? Most of us want to run away from that. All of us tend to do that, at least for a period of time. And those of us who have the courage and the acknowledgement of our humanness and our belief and our certainty about our potential and our unwillingness to settle in life and our willingness to confront our deepest fears and do the work, those of us who do that, we get the experience that our greatest moments of terror become our greatest liberator. And when you can get that, and when you can acknowledge how much of what you do is being driven to prove something to your external world, to prove your worth, And just know that it's not getting you anywhere fast other than reinforcing that belief in your unworthiness and taking away your freedom. When you can acknowledge that and you have the courage to face your biggest fears and do the work, you will be liberated, right? And so now on the other side of that, we can make sure that the goals that we set, that the visions that we have, that the people that we bring into our lives are brought in from a place of love, not fear, right? From this positive place, like we're moving in this empowered direction. We're not trying to avoid all our fears and insecurities. We're addressing those. And we see them as the necessary stepping stones to get us to our highest potential and our highest degree of fulfillment and the highest impact that we can have in this existence, so that we can ultimately manifest and experience what it is to live to our highest potential, to not just settle, but to actually reach for everything that you've got to experience in this life and not hold back. So that's really my message for you guys today. I hope that me sharing on that deeply personal level does just wake you up to potentially your acknowledgement, right? That maybe I've got some of those patterns, right? If you're a human being, you got them, right? I haven't met a human being yet who hasn't been affected in some way, shape, or form from their past and doesn't have patterns that are at play that are the deepest motivations for all that they're doing, and they wonder why they keep sabotaging their success. They wonder why they keep achieving the things that they believe are going to fulfill them and they never feel fulfilled. They wonder why they can't go the depths of intimacy and connection in their relationships. And they wonder, why can I not have any self-love? Why do I always judge and condemn myself? Why am I my own worst enemy? Right? So there's so much value in doing this work. And I wanted to let you guys know, if you've made it to the end of this video, I want to offer you a free session with me, a power session. It's short and sharp, but it will help you to get clarity. And I will put a link in the comments for those of you who want to take me up on that, because I want to serve you guys at a higher level. And nothing excites me more than being able to give somebody a bit of an aha moment about the reality of their existence, about what's going on, what's driving them, so that they can ultimately have the pathway forward with clarity about what is it that I need to do in order to be my highest self, right? To live to my highest potential and to be free. All right, so that's what I'm going to offer to each and every one of you guys who made it to the end of this video. Like I said, I'll put the link in the comments afterwards, and I look forward to meeting you and connecting with you and serving you at a higher level. All right, so let me check in with you guys. Have you got any questions or comments or words of wisdom or anything that you'd like to share? I'd absolutely love to get to connect with you now and see who's been able to join me. So let's dive in. I've got Jared in the house and Huss is in the house. Huss, I haven't seen you in ages. And Bill's back. Always great to see you. And Jose, hi Vanessa, is good to see you again. As always, I love seeing you guys come back and back and back. So awesome. And Judy's here, and Joshua and Jared, remarkable truth. I have so much gratitude and appreciation if I can talk properly, for your sharing this. I'm currently diving deep into learning the understanding of shadow work. Awesome. Are you familiar with shadow work? Absolutely. I love the darkness, right? And it's funny. And thank you so much for those kind words, Jared. You are so appreciated, my friend. And I love that you're on that journey with shadow work, because at the end of the day, so much of what is taught in this realm of personal development is so positive thinking, right? And there's such a place for it. It's necessary. But don't skip out on the shadows, right? You need the contrast. You need to know what's in the light and what's in the dark. And most of what our existence and what our drives and motivations and all of that are in our subconscious, in the darkness. Only about 5% of your mind's capacity is in the light. And we want to shine more and more light on the darkness, right? On doing the shadow work, as you're saying there, Jared, so that we can ultimately be consciously designing our life rather than defaulting into something that's driven by fear. And we're by no means even the wiser for all of those motivations. And that's what's driving our lack of fulfillment in life, right? In all areas, and our self-sabotage and all of it. So I'm so grateful to hear that you're on that amazing journey, Jared. And I look forward to hearing more about what you're overcoming and what you're breaking through and how that's impacting your pathway forward as well. So awesome. And thanks so much for sharing. And Hassel, hello to you, and Jamie and Christina and Brandon and Angela and Charity and Mike and Bill, happy you were born. Oh, you're touching my heart. Thank you so much, Bill. And I'm super grateful that you were born as well. You're an incredible human being. Very grateful that we've crossed paths. And Huss, so appreciate you sharing this, V. I've been focusing a lot on my own value and worthiness lately. Awesome. This just adds to what I've been doing. There's no need to prove anything. The motivation to achieve my highest dreams needs to come from a place of love and wholeness, not from a need to prove myself to anyone. Absolutely. Going to sit some more with this one, V. Thanks again, and so good seeing you live. Oh, Huss, I'm so grateful to hear the journey that you're on, and thank you so much for those kind words as well. And I look forward to hearing about your journey and your insights as well. Share them in the Limitless Potential Inner Circle community. We'd love to hear from you. And, you know, that's incredible because so many people mistake a sense of confidence for their self-esteem. And there's a difference, right? So self-confidence comes from your abilities, right? Your competence in what you do, in whatever you think you can do, right? That means that you have to develop your confidence. You have to learn, you have to grow, you have to have the failures, and you have to, break through and all that sort of stuff so that you can ultimately build your competency in things, and that's going to up-level your confidence. What we're really talking about in today's message is not self-confidence, we're talking about self-esteem. And what self-esteem is, you don't need to do anything. It doesn't matter what you've done, what you've not done, what you've said and what you've not said, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just the fact that you are a human being, or just existing, I should say, is that you are inherently valuable. There's no price that can be put on you. There's nothing that you need to prove, any of that. So just as a side note, know the difference with that. And yeah, Huss, that's an amazing journey that you're on, and nothing more empowering than that. So awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. And Georgina, I'm grateful that this was well said for you. So I hope this has served you, and I hope it's given you some clarity. Like I said, I'd love to connect with a bunch of you. I've opened up some of these free sessions just to connect and serve at my highest level for you, and help you to liberate yourself and identify what's holding you back. All right, so you can get about living to your actual potential and experiencing real fulfillment. Right, so that's my message for you. As always, I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for showing up live today, for contributing to the conversation. You're so appreciated. And as always, make sure that you are going out there and you are living authentically. You're loving deeply, and you're contributing meaningfully. All right? That's my message. Can't wait to see you guys tomorrow, and I'm sending you all of my love until then. Much love.